All right, Grand Rising. Can I get a GR in the chat if you can hear me? Fractilians, I see you. Thai Viking, welcome. There's another GR. Think that's confirmation. Felix, how's it going, sir?
Grand Rising. I'm doing good. Good, sir. How are you?
I am good. Excited for week 2. It's just like my personal journey to learn AI that I'm sharing with all of you. So I'm excited to learn from the legend, the Neo Tokyo dev lead, Felix Norden, founder of Mure. I can do one tongue roll, but anything more than that, it's a struggle over here.
You're
Um,
almost Danish.
Subcoder said, "Wow, I've never seen your face." I assume he's saying Felix's face because I've shown my face a good amount around here.
Same here. I've shown my face a whole bunch.
You have. Subcoder, you need to pay attention more, sir. Jeff Treves says, "Nice hoodie." I have
Gotta
Neo
represent.
Tokyo swag somewhere, but yeah, I'm not wearing it at the moment. Um, all right, we have a lot to discuss today. We have a packed agenda. We're going to be diving into how to actually utilize AI tools in an automated fashion through APIs. From like the business perspective, we'll dive in a bit technically as well. But right now, obviously, most businesses are starting to integrate different AI into their products and platforms. Even if you are starting a business as a solopreneur, utilizing AI is becoming essential at this point, even if it's just an efficiency thing for your team internally or if it's something customer facing. So, what I want to do here is really dive into what the options are for the back end large language models, what other teams and products have done as far as like wrapping existing models, how that's even possible. And then Felix will screen share a bit and dive into some of like the actual nuts and bolts of how to do some of the setup. But before we get into details, we can just dive in a bit to Felix's background as he's been deep in AI for a while now. So, Felix, why don't you tell the people a bit about your experience? I know previously Amazon, Twitch, and along with that, maybe just talk about how AI has come in and out of your career and rapidly changed over the last 5 years, I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, for sure. Sure thing. So I'll start kind of from the beginning, and not the day when I was born, but when I was starting to get exposure towards AI as a whole, and that started at university. So for those who don't know, I have a software engineering degree, a 5-year degree, with a master's in machine learning and big data. So basically, when I went to start university in 2016, all I was about was how can I be as successful as possible. And I basically deliberated between becoming a doctor versus becoming an engineer. And I realized that the path to money is way faster through engineering. And I always had a knack for technology. So I got encouraged to do that. And so I did. And when I was applying, I basically saw that in the next few years, there will be a master's program focusing on machine learning and AI. And that was basically the unicorn hype back since, like, what is it, 2015? It was when we had AlphaGo and everything happening with the major initial breakthroughs of the last AI winter. So went into all that, did bachelor's, got into master's, and along the way was part of a small startup that was known as IGDB at the time that happened to be acquired by Amazon and Twitch. And with that, got exposure towards, well, the Silicon Valley life, but in small Gothenburg in Sweden. And through that, got basically to participate in various journeys through the engineering, but then also AI as I got more and more deeply into my master's. And with that, effectively went straight into becoming an applied scientist at Amazon, focusing on natural language processing at Twitch, working on Automod, among other things as well. So it's ironic that we are actually doing things here, because my thesis was actually on like how to teach what was then like the coolest shit, which was effectively semantic models, the predecessors of LLMs, and effectively teaching them the semantic nuances, the different meanings of words when they are in different contexts. And that was basically to be applied on Twitch chats, for example. So that's kind of what my publication was on, which was super funny and ironic because if we talk about it these days, the semantic models have turned into large language models, and the context window research that I did is now effectively what we call RAG, or um, retrieval augmented generation. So I've been very close and early into that space. It's been super, super fun and super funky. And it's been nice to keep track of it back and forth. Then I got like a tiny intermission into it all, and taking a break from it as I left Amazon, what was it, in 2022 to go full-time Web3 through people here in Neo Tokyo and whatnot. And have always been trying to keep a finger on the pulse there. So I've always been keeping a track on the research field and the science field on AI, because I always wanted to bring AI and crypto together. That happened for me, and then I just jumped on the bandwagon here in Web3 as well to actually have fun with AI along the way.
How did you see into the future so well to choose this as your specialty?
Uh, uh, I don't know. I mean, I found it very, very much interesting, and then we just happened to hit critical mass soon thereafter. I would say that if I would have stuck around and kept up with the AI side, I would probably be more successful today, because I would probably have continued with the research, and I could have been one of those people that got poached by Meta for millions of dollars or something like that. But I followed my passion. I think that's the most important thing either way. But it's been an interesting journey for sure.
And you mentioned the different structure of context window versus semantic window for something like a Twitch chat. Do you want to give background on what that means? I don't know what that means.
Sure. So when we talk about language and grammars, we talk about syntax and semantics. So in language, what that actually means is syntax is the structure. So grammar and how you formulate a meaning or a sentence. Sorry, because meaning is the sentence in Swedish. And then you have the semantics, and semantics is more the underlying meaning of the words in a sentence. And the problem is that when you're working with models as a whole, if you don't change the input, the output will not change either. Effectively speaking, with assuming everything is always, the input is always the same, um, large language models and machine learning models are so-called deterministic. They will always be outputting the same results each and every time. The problem here then is if you have different settings and you don't capture the full context of the information that goes in, and you have, for example, with what I was doing research on, my prime example was, let's say you're in a live stream talking about terrorism, but it's a Counter-Strike global offensive or Counter-Strike 2 stream. Terrorism is not something that carries any serious meaning for moderation. But let's say you're in a just chatting or casual stream and somebody's starting to talk about terrorism. At that point, it might be valuable to actually flag those messages and capture them. But if you aren't able to provide that context, that information, the model will not be able to disseminate between those two semantic shifts, as we call them, because the one is more serious than the other. It's just going to view it as one and the same. And that's effectively what I was researching on, to see what can we do in a near real-time system to be able to reduce the error rate that we had in these moderation conversations, and then effectively keep up pace with all the streams of influx that is happening at all points in time without creating a huge ass bill for Twitch as well.
Interesting. Well, you might have
Yeah.
gotten out of there at just the right time. I saw Amazon Game Studios laid off or shut down a significant portion of their business like yesterday. So the
Yeah.
Web3 pivot, maybe still to be determined if it's the long-term right move, but at least short-term, I think it was the right move.
Startup life for life is definitely the one thing that I learned. Being part of big corp and big tech is great for learning, but it's not as fun, and you are not as flexible as you can be when it comes to building stuff fast.
Yeah, the subcoder clarified in the chat. 30,000 employees laid off. That's
Yep.
a big layoff. And Mr. Meep from the Peanut Gallery with that handsome face, I can only assume he slept his way to the top. That's funny.
That's so funny.
So taking a step back here, obviously most of the products we engage with today are integrating AI, whether that's from like the customer support level, chat bots. That was probably one of the first mainstream sort of applications of these AI models to like daily consumer life, all the way to like fully restructuring how products are working on the back end. Um, like obviously there's been some dominant models that have cropped up, ChatGPT being the biggest one from OpenAI. But I think what I'd like to know, and the audience would as well, is the models that are out there and kind of dominating. What are the differences that you see in what's differentiating them from each other? Are they all kind of similar at this point that everyone's building on top of? Or are there like advantages or disadvantages to using some of the dominant models right now?
Uh, the engineer's answer. It depends. Um, More often than not, it heavily relies on what you're looking to achieve and what you're trying to focus on. So certain models are more specialized towards specific tasks. It can be various mediums or modalities, as we talk about, like text to text, text to image, image to text, text to video, whatever, right? But then also it comes down to how these systems are architected. So if we look at, for example, GPT-3, I think, which was the first model that then led into the architectural shift, but that was effectively just a bigger and cooler transformer model than we had seen before. But at that point, we basically started seeing that performance was not one-to-one correlated with size. So we started to have to think about something new here. And it's very interesting within AI research how we are kind of more and more trying to mimic how the brain functions, because neural networks are effectively just models of how the neurons in the brain interact with each other to understand and think. And what we started to build more and more now is a stronger and stronger representation of this to be more efficient. So a lot of the latest models are focusing on, for example, different architectures like mixture of experts, which effectively is a way of thinking that you train certain areas of the network similar to how you have certain parts of your brain for certain tasks and experiences. And then you can effectively train these different types of experts for different fields. And thus you can apply them for different things. So for example, you have these coding models, which I use a lot these days for repetitive tasks or refactoring tasks and so on, where I need to move fast and do a lot of touch-ups, or at least plan out my work to analyze the code base and whatnot. But then there are other things like Google's Gemini 2.0 and 2.5 models are very good in terms of getting in a bunch of data, because they can have a huge context window. Tying back to what we talked about earlier, basically means how much text you can put into it to then converse with it. And then it's also quite fast. So if you need to have more real-time problems or something that is more on a time crunch, those are better for that. You have reasoning models, which is more like you do an iterative process. You teach models how to think deeper, but that takes time. They're useful for things like Claude or ChatGPT having like the research modes where the agent goes away for like 20 minutes, does a bunch of scraping, pulls in a bunch of research, and then creates like a report for you. Like it heavily depends on exactly what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the closed source versus open source models as well.
And so the tools that we're starting to use every day are often like more specified platforms built for a specific purpose. Like the cursor example, it's connected with Claude and other models on the back end that you can pick and choose which it's working with. But what does
Yep.
Cursor actually have to do to plug into those models? and be able to switch between them? Do they have a specific set of rules they have set up that gets applied in the same way to each of the models, or how are they accessing the models on the back end?
Excellent question. So now we get to like the core premise of programming, right? APIs, application programming interfaces. Effectively, all what Cursor does is efficient use of various APIs that are provided by these bigger organizations where they are running their models in the cloud. And then you send prompts or just text to them, and they respond with that a response in a structured format for you. And that's how Cursor, for example, then can take the current code as context and a bunch of additional prompts and so on, send it up to the cloud, have the LLM act like a brain and come back with you with information, and then they create tools around that to react and do the changes that are needed. And you basically have a conversation with that brain up in the cloud effectively.
Are they paying like the same or similar credits for their usage that the end consumer is, or is that like usage payment model different?
I think it's different. I think they potentially get discounts just because of the sheer volume that they push through. But they also have the arbitrage opportunity there. So for those who don't know, if you're using like pure API based access, you usually pay per token. So you have like pay X amount of dollars per 100,000 output tokens or million output tokens and so on. And tokens here is effectively a word, but it's going back to what we said earlier, like the semantic representation of something effectively that it can get parsed by the LLM. And that's effectively what you pay for. That's the currency of taking something in, thinking about it, and spitting something out. That's the easiest way to actually process these things to give you some form of cost estimate. But what Cursor has done is that on top of that, they've added a subscription model. So what that means is that you had a subscription on top of their platform. And then if you don't overconsume, that means that they have an arbitrage opportunity there. Because if you pay $20 per month for a set amount of tokens and you don't consume them all, they've saved money that way. They get more money up front, and then they just have that as a rolling buffer. And that's kind of similar to what you have with all the other subscription models as well. And if you overconsume consistently, they will rate limit you. They basically say, hey, you've exceeded your quota. Good luck, have fun. See you in a week. That's effectively what happens. So yeah, there's like I think a bit of double dipping there going on.
Gotcha. And so the obvious use case there for crypto would be have the token spend be on chain.
Yes.
Is that something you see as like an enhancement, or is it kind of up in the air right now if that would be a benefit or not?
So, I mean, speaking about AI and agents, we just saw the buzz around X402 happening last week, where we're now finally starting to see exactly that. And for those who don't know what that's about, it's effectively API-based access that is gated by payments. So unless you can provide a proof of payment, the request will not go through. And that makes sense because at that point, it becomes even clearer that you're doing a handshake transaction where you pay per use rather than a subscription model. And that's where the beauty of Web3 lies as well. You pay for what you consume rather than having a rolling payment each and every time, which I think is definitely a strong selling point, because it means that you only pay for your usage always. And you get the proof of transaction and everything on chain as well, which has its perks. So yeah, I think it's definitely a strong selling point. And we're seeing traction for it as well. So
Yeah. Very cool.
Mhm.
So I want to get into like brass tacks. If we have people considering, different business ideas with using AI tools, obviously as the models have gotten better over the last couple of years, we've seen so many different like wrapper tools come out that are built on top of these big models. I mean, I've used many of them, right? Like every couple months, there's a new image generation tool or video generation tool that all have the same backend, but are tweaking things very slightly. Um,
Yep.
so is it as easy as setting it up to point to their API, adding some of your own rules to like narrow the focus of what it's doing? Or how can someone actually get started with plugging into the API of one of these AI tools?
So to get going, for non-technicals, I would recommend using something like Claude's prompt toolbox or Gemini. Let me see if I can pull it up actually. Um, so you can basically go on to various platforms. Each of these bigger corporations have access to the various prompt tools out there. So let me see if I can just sign in and then I share my screen. But effectively, what that allows you to do is you get sort of like a chat-esque experience where I'm already in the developer program. Come on. Am I on the wrong account? Anyways, as I was saying, effectively what it allows you to do is you get the chat-esque experience that you have with ChatGPT and Claude and so on, but you get more granular tools to basically tweak and do the slight adjustment that you just mentioned. So we're talking then about things like system prompts or we're talking about system prompts or various types of templates and so on to basically prime the LLM to say, hey, you're an expert in certain areas, you're focusing on these and these things, and then you're basically guiding it in one direction to focus on the aspects that you're looking for. So you don't have, for example, like we talked about mixture of experts, too many different experts coming in and trying to beat at the same drum, because that's just going to become noisy. And then following that, the next step I would say is starting to actually interact with APIs. So there are different tools and such out there as well, where, for example, you can use, actually share my screen now. You can use things like OpenRouter, which is actually an aggregator of sorts for various models, where you have rankings, where you can see which actual models are used for what things, different leaderboards, tracking, and so on, which is very useful. You can even try them out through chat, but then you can actually go into and read deeply into these different models, see their usage, see latency, and so on, and even dig into the documentation. So there are a bunch of tools here for you to actually get up and running as well. And it is not as scary as it looks and as it sounds, because AI can help you a lot these days with it as well. So for example, I use tools like, let's see, let me pull this up as well. I use OpenCode for a lot of my coding. It's effectively similar to Claude Code, but it's an open source version, and I love open source, which effectively allows you to automate a bunch of your work, and you basically prompt and use the different agents and AI out there. So what it allows you to do is you can authenticate with, for example, OpenRouter. You can pick your model off the shelf for what's provided, and then they have done all the integrations for you, and you can basically use their knowledge and their skills to use the AI to build new things on top. So it's quite straightforward to actually get going. The challenge is when you get too deep into, like what I know you liked Firestone to do was vibe coding a lot. When you get deep into the vibe coding trenches and you are thinking that you have something that you want to add a feature to, unless you have the experience on how to change those things, it might become a house of cards and it just collapses on itself. That can become quite painful. But to get up and running and start prototyping, like the sky's the limit. You can have a bunch of fun with this, and you can actually learn a lot of things while doing so as well.
So it's not too hard to pivot to being an AI company and then raise more money from prospective investors. It probably would take a day's time from a dev who knew what they were doing.
Yeah, to get going with AI for sure. I mean, I think all successful companies will effectively be powered by AI to some extent, be it for consumers or be it for themselves. But using AI for tools is super important. Like, for example, just Google now comes bundled with Google Workspaces, a bunch of AI tooling powered by Gemini, like transcriptions, note taking, summarizing chats or summarizing documents, helping with spreadsheets, coding, like everything. It just helps with productivity to a large extent. And then you can also do like what Perplexity CEO is saying, is that everything is just a wrapper, which is a quite fun meme and reference. But what he's basically saying is they built their whole company around something like OpenAI to leverage their knowledge upon LLMs and AI to apply it for Perplexity's needs and purposes, which now has become a very strong and powerful company, which has a lot of end user viability.
Interesting. Well, if everything's wrapping a few different models, I don't know, maybe I need to buy some more Google Alphabet stock.
Yeah, go for it.
It's all heading that direction.
Yeah, exactly. So here, for example, you have. No, I don't want to receive emails. Sorry, Google. Um, Here you can, for example, get going where you have various tools and so on that you can pick from. You can pick Gemini. You can start pinging things, but here you have system instructions, like I was talking about. So here you can input different instructions. You can talk about what the tone and the overall messaging and structure should be. If you want the LLM to be verbose, or if it should be concise, if it should focus on summarizing things, what tasks it should solve, and so on. And this effectively then gets injected into the LLM to so-called prime it, so it knows what it has to do. So this is the perfect first step for people that want to understand more how LLMs work and figuring out how things actually function underneath the hood and see what responses you get. And then that's when you get into things like you heard probably like 6 to 8 months ago, but a lot of prompt engineering people were talking about. And that's where you figure out good repeatable steps or patterns to get the LLM to do what you want it to do.
You are working with, or are working at the company called Eden Layer over the past year or so. What AI were you building with or on top of with them?
So there we were building basically a protocol for AI agents to interact. So there we weren't necessarily using AI as a backbone, except for the agents that we were doing, for examples. With that, we were using a lot of Gemini because of its sheer speed and cost efficiency. And then some more complex ones that had tool capabilities. So we were using Claude Sonnet 4 for some things when it came to doing good tool calls, like, for example, interacting with the blockchain or reading information and so on. Because in order to actually give like an agent like the arms and limbs and the capabilities to do things and that affects the world, you need to have things like tools, which is effectively API integrations, once again, to let the LLM to think about what it wants to do and then provide the means of doing so. And then we were building a bunch on top of MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, which is effectively a Anthropic's way of standardizing the way for these AI to actually interact.
And an agent is a fancy way of saying basically an AI that can work autonomously and make decisions without you having to prompt everything it's doing, right? And they usually have more precise duties or responsibilities.
It's an excellent question. I don't think anybody knows because everybody has different definitions of what an agent is.
Okay, then what's
But
your definition or multiple definitions that you see them most useful as?
right. No, but I think you captured it quite well. Usually what I think is you have agents and then you have autonomous agents. So an agent is effectively a smart system that has a set of capabilities. And more often than not, it's something where it isn't autonomous, where you interact with it and you get a feedback loop, and it might be able to take in information from the environment and from you to then continue acting until it hits an endpoint. But it always needs to be triggered by you. And then you have autonomous agents, which are completely reactive. You don't necessarily have to have that kickstart to get going, and it's just ready to do it. But the idea that you had a finite set of tasks or a purpose, I think, is the key thing there.
So we talked about the use case of AI in your software product, which would be initiated by some customer interaction or some flow within your product. If someone
Yep.
had wanted to put their toe in the water as far as just starting to automate something like a very simple flow in their daily workflow, let's say they wanted to filter their emails with an agent, or on the coding side, like have it do a code review for before they push it to the rest of their team. Where would you get started for creating like a small automation like that with an agent with a specific task? One of those two.
I would start trying something like this out. So N8N is one of them that are basically a workflow builder that now has agentic capabilities built into it, which is pretty nice because you basically have this node system where you can point and click, you can drag things together, you can create these interactions. So you could start off by actually doing some form of connection and just try it out to build these, well, workflows that we're talking about here, right? To do those automations. Um, so in our case here, it could be something along the lines of, hey, a message is being sent in a Discord channel, which then triggers some form of feedback loop or some response to then act and maybe go out and do a tweet or post something on other social media, or maybe, I don't know, you want to do Discord based prompting for editing videos. I have no idea. But I think this is a good starting point. And there's a lot of materials out there on how to get going and how to learn. And like they have more than 500 integrations. So you can have a lot of fun with everything from email to databases to chat applications to tables, what have you. Like the sky's the limit.
Man, they're making it a lot easier these days.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to make developers redundant, but there's a new role coming out, which is basically AI slop cleaner.
Yeah, my vibe coded projects are definitely AI slop. You would throw up at the slop if you actually read it. Um,
I mean, more often than not, it depends on how applicable they are. If they solve your problems and you don't need to reuse it, it's fine. It's more like if you need to build enterprise solutions that are supposed to live and stand the test of time, vibe coding might not be the tool for you, but it's a great starting point.
yep. The chat was complaining that the screen share is blurry, so I was trying to adjust that real quick. There's a
Oh,
question in the chat as well. I looked into N8N for making agents to help me with my job, but it was a little costly, over 2,500 for setup. Do you know of cheaper options for what I'm looking for? I own a screw machine shop that I took over from my dad. I need help with the engineering aspect of it. I'd like to upload a print, have AI tell me information about it, like the size of the tools needed and cycle time to make the part. So that's a pretty specific
ooh.
manufacturing question. But yeah, question from the chat, Felix, if you have any thoughts on that.
I know. I mean, it depends on how much you want to automate things from the go, but you could always work backwards and start by just trying to provide the information to various models and see what you can get answers out of it. Because Gemini, for example, can take in a lot of different mediums. So images, you can take in text, you can take in, I think, sound and so on as well. And with that, you could interpret based off of all the information that you can get from an intake and see what you can output. Because if that then works, then at least you know that you can use a specific model to actually work things through. I've also seen that people actually are hosting N8N and so on themselves for cheaper because it is open source, which allows you to effectively run things on your own hardware if you want to. So that could be cheaper to run it. The one challenge is still the fact that you're using AI, and AI comes with a cost. So figuring out like the whole trifecta of latency, intellect, and cost is always going to be like a factor for you to tackle as well if cost is an issue. But that's what I would say. There are other N8N like alternatives as well out there, but I think N8N is the biggest one.
Cool. One
Low
sec.
code
I'm
platform.
switching the source. So we got full screen capture there. I don't think it's blurry anymore. Audience, you can
It
actually
could
read what sites Felix is pulling up.
it could be my fault as well because my wife is actually streaming right now as well. So I can tell her to
No,
stop streaming, but she will just tell me
I
no.
think it was on my end with that Discord pop out issue. I had it sort of zoomed in a bit.
Got it. Zapier is another one that you can try out, but I think Zapier tries to be more friendly, but it probably also comes with more of a price tag because of that.
Yeah, Zapier was an automation tool. It's been around for a while now. They were
Yep.
pre AI features for sure. I think I had set up some like email automations maybe 10 years ago at
Hmm.
Zapier.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing as well. With workflows, you have just a systematic pipeline of things to do. But if things were hard to do before, you can now pipe it into an AI to interpret it and then act based off of that, which is pretty cool because you can. Oh my God, my wife is yelling in the background. What you can do is actually tell it to output things in a structured way so you can still get the consistency you need. So you can output it to, for example, JSON, which is a data format, or just markdown files, which is very common these days as well, or just a PDF if you want to. And then you can parse it however you want and so on from there as well, which is pretty cool. So that's the beauty of AI. It has some inconsistency at times if you don't use it well. And if you abuse it, you're gonna pay the cost of a big bill. That's the other
What's
side note.
your daily stack? What's your AI stack? Obviously, yours would be more development specific, but I think it'd still be useful for us to learn what are your daily tools. My AI subscriptions are getting kind of out of hand. I definitely need to cancel some of them, but what are yours
It's-
that you can't cancel because they're very like helpful to you on a daily basis?
I mean, given that engineering is kind of my bread and butter, I do a lot of software development. With that, I use OpenCode, and I use OpenCode Zen right now as well. Dax, if you're watching this, I don't think you do, but let's chat again sometime in the future. He's the one of the founders and creators of this. They basically provide the capability to just pay as you go. So you pay for your usage. That's the main benefit here as well. And you can select a bunch of different models for different tasks that you're looking to do. And then I manage my own prompts and so on. So with that, I have various agents and toolkits to do tasks like planning, do tasks like coding, do tasks like writing documentation and so on. So that's kind of my daily driver. Outside of that, I use Anthropic quite a bit as well. Claude is very nice for research and text based stuff. I prefer that more than ChatGPT. Those are my two main subscriptions, to be honest, right now. I actually had a cleanse myself recently because my subscriptions were also getting out of hand. But those have been like the two crucial ones because for everyday stuff where things are a bit more private or I don't have the capabilities to plug everything into Anthropic, having this available at my fingertips is super, super powerful. And then when I need to do more asynchronous work or big research work, I love using the research mode on Claude. It's amazing because you just give it like you spend like 5-10 minutes writing up a requirements doc that is maybe like one page of things to consider, things you want to take care of, asking it to give you like an interactive experience on any clarifications that it could reason out. And then it goes off and it disappears for like 20-30 minutes. And then it comes back with like a 20-page report on everything you need to know, which is amazing. Because that you can then use. I use that myself as a knowledge base. For example, here, I actually have like a Claude project or an open or an Anthropic project for my open code setup where I've done a big research report on prompting, systemic research, the latest and greatest knowledge in how to actually do things more properly. And then that acts as the backbone for any outputs that I ask for it to do here. So I use Claude to help generate my prompts for various tasks, and then I can iterate through that. So that's kind of how I go by it. I use the AI as much as possible to do the heavy lifting for me.
Yeah, I talked about it a bit last week, but that was similar to my flow for the game I just published on Remix. I used ChatGPT and Grok to like generate the requirements, generate prompts that I then put into Cursor to generate the
Exactly.
code. Because AI can come up with the prompts for AI better than I can. So it's
More often than not,
yeah.
exactly.
Also for
So yeah, I
my
use that a lot.
corporate background was in product management, which most of my work was writing requirements and creating documentation for our product. Man, if I was still in that sort of role, this would have cut down my work by 90%. Having these tools 5 years ago, it's so insane.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's very powerful. We used it a lot for getting like secondary opinions on like quotes for clients or figuring out workloads, thinking about if we covered all the bases when it comes to actual requirements analysis and so on as well. And it's super useful.
What
This
is
is
this
also
research paper you're looking at here?
this is one of my favorites. So this came out I don't remember, like a few months ago. It's basically a systematic survey for prompt engineering and large language models. I just wanted to bring it up because this is always the number one thing that I reference when I do my prompt research, because it has effectively a survey and summary of a bunch of different tools and methodologies for prompting. Um, this is basically all it covers, with a bunch of references and so on at the bottom as well. So if you find anything interesting here that you want to explore further, you can just go to the references and read the further papers, or you have Claude do the research for you, which is super, super useful. So this is kind of one of my main go-to things, because it's literally 3 pages or 2 pages of references. Science.
Man, I mean, we grew up having to, manually write our papers and find the sources and list the sources. I don't know how kids are gonna, like, maybe they'll be way more efficient than we are and still be able to think critically, but I err on the side of like I'm just worried about the critical thinking skills of kids unless they're
Yeah.
forced to manually do some of these things. But I'm sure my grandpa was saying the same thing when we got calculators and didn't have to do everything by hand. I probably sound like a total boomer.
No, no, but I agree with you. The one thing that starts scaring me now is the older generation is starting to fall for all the AI stuff as well. Like my mother is sending my wife like reels and so on at times of just clearly AI stuff, and she thinks it's real, which is scary. So the brainwashing from the top has already begun as well, and now it's creeping down the ages as well, which is terrifying.
Yeah, I always second guess if a funny video is real or not. It's gonna get a lot harder over the years to tell the difference too.
Yeah,
There's the
yeah,
Sora watermark right now, which you can remove with AI tools. It's like the watermark won't be there forever, but there's like
yep,
Sora accounts that are just making the most ridiculous, funny videos. And they're funny now because you can tell it's fake,
yeah,
but it won't be that
yep.
funny when you can't tell, which will happen in the next year probably.
Yeah, identity theft is going to be a problem. It's going to be scary. Um, Back on more fun things. This is also one of the very good, if people want to get more geeky and developery, Matt Pocock, uh, a very good creator that does a lot of engineering stuff, but he's focusing a lot on AI right now. So he's put out courseware and so on how to use AI SDK, which is one of the number one libraries for basically writing AI applications that are integrating with LLMs.
Yeah,
Great guy.
he does look like a nerd, so I'm sure there's some valuable information in there.
He's just a charming fellow. He's very cool.
I have not heard of him. I'll check him out.
He's very fun. Um, yeah. So now we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about like LLMs as a whole, API access, tooling, how to get started. Where do you want to go next?
Well, we only have a few minutes left, so maybe we can talk about future. Maybe if you have any hot takes on future of AI evolution. I mean, obviously, the exponential rate of just the power of AI has gone pretty crazy. We're starting to hit limits of like actual server room, but
Mm-hmm.
governments are making deals on huge scales for additional GPU power, the US government included. Um, Couple questions in the chat I can get to, but maybe your take on like on the builder side to stay like on the cutting edge, keep your business future proof. Like, what are some of your takes on advice? Like, what do you do personally to stay on the cutting edge? Obviously,
Oh,
using AI to research AI is one method, but you run several
meta.
businesses. What are you doing personally to keep up with it all?
Yeah. Meta AI, using AI to learn it and teach AI. I think the number one rule or suggestion that I can make is to use AI, don't abuse AI. And what I mean by that is AI is great for a set of things. It's not great at doing everything at this point. And if you overuse it, you will, one, start losing a lot of your fundamental skills like critical thinking, and coding is one thing as well, and whatnot, and actually being able to do things yourself. But it's also potentially going to lower the average quality, because AI is all statistics. It's just machine learning, which is just statistics on steroids. So it's doing like average work, potentially a bit better now these days, and we're trying to get away from the average. But if you have a lot of expertise in an area yourself, lean into that expertise and believe in yourself rather than the AI. In order to stay up to date, papers, sorry, reading is very necessary. It is fun as well if you are interested in the space. The other means of doing it is like YouTube. Another, if you want to learn more about how things are going, is like Welch Labs, which is talking more on the theoretical side of AI and whatnot, and where things are progressing, how things are developing, how things are actually working systemically, and so on. They're like summaries, like what is it, 2 minute papers, I think it is. Yeah, also very fun to watch about research and whatnot and how things are progressing. Like very, very good pieces of content. If you want to stay more in touch with tech, Fireship is hilarious. Big recommendations. Um, but that's, I think, the key thing: just being aware and being willing to learn. That's the number one thing to be able to keep up with everything. Um, and then don't be afraid to explore. Like when it comes to AI models and where I think we are moving, just to transition a bit as well. Um, I think it's going to be very much like how everything else is right now as well when it comes to human nature. We build something huge, we realize it's becoming too big and too bulky, we start breaking it down, and then we distribute. So what I think will happen is we're going to get to a point where we have a lot smarter of AI that is available and accessible, and that hopefully is going to be more open source, so people can start running AI models locally in their homes and so on, and on their computers to do more everyday tasks and automate things. Um, with that, you get a bunch of benefits like lower latency, potentially lower cost, potentially more upfront cost, but lower cost over time. Privacy. You actually don't have to worry about what data you're sending because you have full control end to end and so on. And then with that, hopefully more innovation will keep spurring out. I am one of the people that was taught from school that artificial general intelligence, AGI, is very hard to accomplish. And I still believe that AGI is going to be very hard to accomplish. So I don't think we're going to get AGI or ASI in the next 2 years, like some people are convinced we are. Um, because even though we're making great strides in one direction, all of a sudden we see how stupid AI can be at times as well and really make you stumble. And yeah, with that, I would say don't let AI, the fear of AI replacing you, keep you bogged down to move forward and actually learn and explore it. That's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, utilize AI to expand your skill set into other areas. Maybe you don't have that much expertise in, it'll just level you up. On the education
Yep.
side as well, I definitely, YouTube is a primary both entertainment and education platform for myself. One quick tip: every YouTube video has a transcript tab, which has it text listed out. Often what I'll do if I don't have time to watch an hour long podcast, I'll copy and paste the transcript into ChatGPT and have it summarize the video for me. Um, I mean, obviously I watch full videos as well, but if I don't have time or I don't really care, but I want to know what happened and what they talked about in the video, transcript to AI funnel has been very helpful for me. I'm sure there would
Yeah.
be an agent that can automate that as well. I don't have it set up personally, but that could be a business idea. So feel free to take that one for free. Um, there was one question in the chat from Mr. Meep. He said, when you code with AI, what's your philosophy in terms of how much you understand every detail versus trusting the AI output? Where's this practical balance between wasting time on details or not letting through big mistakes?
Ooh, that's yeah, exactly. Now we're getting to the knife's edge of balance, right? As we say in Sweden, lagom, which means not too much, not too little, just right. Um, the key thing is to apply AI to the right level of problems and with the right knowledge around it. So, what I mean by that is vibe coding and pure creation with AI needs way more scrutiny than if you have a reference and you're looking for it to do some form of repetitive task for you. And it all goes back to like the learning pyramid and understanding, right? Because if you don't have any patterns to match on or any setup, it's going to be way harder for the AI to reproduce or basically take what you're envisioning in your mind and actually creating it. So if you have something where you're looking to expand some existing code base or build a certain feature based off of the requirements and knowledge of something else and so on, then you can leave it a bit more free to just keep pushing and then make sure that you do the testing. Whilst if you're doing something that is completely bleeding edge or something that has no real backbone yet, I would focus more on actually building the building blocks myself first before letting the AI loose, because otherwise it's going to not follow your practices. It's going to make it harder for you to read and understand, especially if you don't let the AI learn through rules and templates based off of your styles. It's going to be way more backloaded cost or future cost for you to actually understand what the hell has been going on. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it did. And Fav asked, I don't have an answer for this, Fav, but he said, do you have any like financial advisor AI tools that you trust to review financial records and has a good privacy policy?
No, not at all. I have an accountant. that's my solution to most of that, to be honest. I Unless you run things locally, I would not trust sharing any form of sensitive information with any cloud provider out there. That's just facts. Because even if they say that they do not process it or whatever, it goes through their systems, and you don't know what data sticks everywhere. Be safe, kids.
On the security side, have there been any major exploits of like consumer inputs to AI LLMs yet that you've heard about?
Yes, there. I mean, if we're talking like end user exploits and so on, people tend to be doing prompt injections, which is basically obfuscating language with hidden characters and so on in the prompts to tell the AI to do malicious things with the user information. But outside of that, like in the engineering space, a lot of people are using AI to analyze and find critical bugs. And also, a lot of AI is being used to create those bugs, which makes it even more terrifying. Um, and there's also been like a flood of people just filing issues that are completely false through AI automation. So, like, there are multiple attack vectors and problems that AI bring to the table as well, just from the sheer fact that we can do things at such a drastically more vast scale, basically.
Very interesting. Well, we are at time here, and I know you're a busy man, so I don't want to keep you too long. Maybe tell the people about your like top priorities right now, where they can keep up with you and your businesses before we sign off for the day.
Sure, for sure. So, top priorities right now is to roll out Mure, which is basically a Web3 powered payments company. We do what we call programmable payments. We're trying to make crypto as great as we were promised with smart contracts, but making it more accessible for people that are building applications on top without the need to understand bridges, without the need to understand DeFi, without anything except for the fact to focus on making a transaction. And yeah, that's my number one priority right now, except for being a newly wedded husband and trying to be a good husband to my wife, and preparing for moving to our new house. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Outside of that, not too much. I've been recovering since wedding in Asia.
Love it. Well, thank you, Felix, for joining. Thank you, chat. New Para TTV said congrats and thank you for the great input. Yeah, we're back every week. I'm leading these. It should be about the same time or very close to it every Wednesday. Different topic, different focus, going through this AI journey live with you all. So we'll be back. Make sure you hit follow. You can throw a subscription if you're feeling extra generous. But there was a few new followers today. Vilgreg, Virgin Fox, Less Than Jake. Looks like K-Trap was last week. So thank you for the follows. It's usually gaming content on this Twitch, but today, AI building focus. We'll be back next week. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you back in the Citadel, citizens who are here. Have a good day.